Hey everyone, it's Mafalda and this is the 7 books for 7 days tag. So this tag was created by Darian from the channel Darian Reads, and she also tagged me to do her original tag. I'll leave her channel and her video down below if you want to check it out. And this tag is basically pretending that we're going on a 7-day trip from Monday to Sunday, and then for each of the days of the week we have a different question and a different prompt related to this supposed trip, and it's super fun. So ready to jump right in, and let's start with Monday. Monday is traveling is always so tiring. Name a book that feels like drinking coffee. And this one you can kind of interpret however you want. If coffee makes you feel awake, if it makes you feel bad, I don't know, like coffee has a different effect for each person. So for me, I love drinking coffee, and coffee is kind of like an energy boost, I guess. When I'm feeling kind of tired or down, I just drink like an espresso and suddenly I'm awake. So when I thought about this answer, I was thinking about an espresso, to be honest, and just like drinking it in one go. And for this one, I have Kim Ji-young, Born 1982 by Shunam Ju. And I've talked about this book quite a lot on my channel in the past few months because I read it a couple of months ago. And I chose this book because it's super short and straight to the point, and you can definitely read it in one go. I actually didn't read it in one sitting, but for example, I lent it to my boyfriend and he read it in a couple of hours because it's just super short and also super interesting to read. It kind of reminds me of an espresso because it's short and it makes you feel like you're not wasting your time because it's a super important read. And this book is about Kim Ji-young, born 1982, like the title says, and basically the book is about her life growing up in South Korea, but always through the lens of a woman. And the book is always contrasting her experiences with the male counterparts in her life, like her male co-workers and her brother. And it kind of shows how hard it is to be a woman nowadays and everywhere, honestly. And it's just a super important read. You can definitely read it in one sitting, and I just think this book is so important. So yeah, that's my first answer. Now for Tuesday, it's you realize you forgot something important, which is something that I always do. It always happens to me, and it's to name a book that was forgettable. And for this one, I'm going with The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. I don't really know why I picked up this audiobook, honestly. I feel like I only picked up this book because I have seen it everywhere and I was just like, why not? And also I had some credits on Audible, and it was when I first started listening to audiobooks and I didn't really know where to start, so I just picked up this one on a whim. And I honestly remember nothing from this book. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. Don't really know why, because I just like that book left no impression on me whatsoever. I don't remember anything from that book, and I feel like that book is overhyped. Not really in the book community, but outside of it. Like I feel like people who don't read only read those types of books, you know? So yeah, I just don't know why I picked it up. Now for Wednesday is you go for an excursion for the day, and it's to name a fast-paced book. And for this one, I'm going with The Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. I read this book pretty recently, and even though this book is kind of big, I feel like so much happens in this book. And maybe that's one of my main criticisms to this book. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars, which wasn't bad, but I just felt like it was going so well. But then the second half of the book was just like too much happened. And that's why I'm mentioning it as a fast-paced book. And I feel like it's not a positive fast-paced book, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel like it was fast-paced and it shouldn't have been. And this book follows Jack and Kate, and they one day meet at a party and they really hit it off, and they start falling in love and having a relationship blossom. But then one day Kate dies, and then after she dies, Jack is transported back into the moment that they met again, and he gets to relive their relationship and try to make Kate not die at the end. And basically that's the whole premise of the book all throughout it. And like I said, I really enjoyed it, but I feel like it was too fast-paced, and I just feel like a lot of the things could have been taken out easily. Now it's Thursday, and it's the most underrated day of the week, and it's to name an underrated book. And for this one, I'm going with Black Girl Unlimited by Echo Brown. This book is criminally underrated on booktube. I feel like no one talks about it, even though Books and Lala talks about it in one of her videos, and that's how I found out about the book. I feel like no one else has read it, and that's sad because this book is really, really good. And this book is magical realism mixed in with memoir, because this is based on Echo Brown's life. And I never really explained this book well, so I'm just going to read you the synopsis of the book, basically. So Echo Brown is a wizard from the east side of Cleveland, where apartments are small and parents suffer addictions to the white rocks. Yet there is magic everywhere. New portals begin to open when Echo transfers to the rich white school on the west side, and an insightful teacher becomes a pivotal mentor. Pivotal? I don't know. Each day, Echo travels between worlds, leaving her brothers, her friends, and a piece of herself on the east side. There are dangers of leaving behind the place that made you. Echo soon recognizes the pain flowing through everyone around her, and a black veil of depression threatens to undo everything she's worked for. And yeah, that's basically the premise of the book. Basically Echo Brown's life mixed in with some magical elements. And I adored this one. This was a very powerful but also like sad and emotional read. I would definitely check the trigger warnings for this one if you want to pick it up. But yeah, it's definitely a great one. It's super underrated, so please pick it up.
Editing Mafalda here because I forgot to answer your question. I don't know how this happened. This never happened to me, but I completely skipped Friday. And for Friday is you go out for a celebratory dinner, and it's to name a book with food on the cover. And I didn't want to mention With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo because that's the only one that I could think of. But I'm going with Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And this is a fantasy book, and it's about a coffee shop in Tokyo where people can go there and have a cup of coffee and travel back in time to whichever time they want. And they have to come back to the present time before the coffee gets cold. So that's the whole point of the coffee shop. And honestly, I didn't really like this book, but it was the only one that I could think with food on the cover, and it has cups of coffee. So yeah. So back to the regular video now.
Now, it's Saturday is You Don't Want the Trip to End, obviously, and it's to name a book that ends in a cliffhanger. And I honestly spent a long time thinking about this one because I feel like not a lot of books end in like big cliffhangers. I feel like in series there's always loose ends by the end of each book, but there's not a lot of like cliffhangers at the end of the book, you know? So for this one, I had to go with the best cliffhanger I've ever read in my life. This one, like the ending of this book gives me goosebumps, honestly, and it's Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. If you've read it, you know it. I am not gonna say it, but this is the biggest cliffhanger I've ever read in a book. I was so grateful that I read this book while the third one was already out, because people who read this when it came out, I'm so sorry for you, because like reading the last sentence of this book and then not having the third book ready for you to read it must be painful. I thankfully had it, so when I ended this, I was just like, oh my god, I need Mockingjay right now. Like, this is the best cliffhanger in a book ever. You can't argue with me, like there's no other cliffhanger like this one. And yeah, I'll never get over it. Like, this is the best book in the trilogy for a reason, and the cliffhanger is honestly one of the biggest reasons why this book is so good. Like, the way that this ends, I cannot. And you probably already know this book, so I don't really need to tell you the plot, but this is the second book in the Hunger Games trilogy, and the first book follows a dystopian world where kids are entered in a game to fight to the death. And in this dystopian world there are 12 districts, and each district has to send 2 kids, a boy and a girl, to go into the Hunger Games and fight to the death. And it's a great series. If you haven't read it, if you haven't heard about it, I highly doubt it, but somehow if you haven't, go read it. Now the last prompt is Sunday and you're sad the trip is over, and it's to name a book that made you cry. And this was the last book that actually made me cry and not just tear up, and it's Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake. I was a mess by the end of this book. I have pictures. I will not insert them on the screen because they're too ugly, but this book has entered my favorites category for a reason. It's amazing, and I really wasn't expecting for the emotional roller coaster that this book would take me on. And this book follows Mara and Owen, and they are twins and they are super close to each other. But then one day Owen is accused by one of Mara's friends of raping that friend, and then Mara is stuck in this complicated situation of not knowing who to believe. And I just love the discussions that this book brought up. I just couldn't stop reading, and by the end I was crying because this book is just really good and it made me feel stuff. That was the last book that actually made me like physically shed tears. And that concludes my 7 books for 7 days tag. Thank you so much, Darian, for tagging me to do this. This was super fun, and I will also tag some people down below to do this tag. And thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't, and I will see you on my next one. Bye!